working in this field since 1999 is the disconnect to nature. And yeah, I always joke and say I can't do everything all in one day, but I can do two things really good this day, and I'll do two different things really well the next.
Right. And when this role kind of first came to you, becoming a director of education, what made you say yes to this role, considering that it could be very big, it could be a huge responsibility, and you've got to manage people, and facilitate projects. What made you said yes to that?
I think that Meewasin is so important for our community because our city is a beautiful city.
What are some of the exciting projects that the company is working on for the city or the province?
Yeah, so Meewasin definitely recognizes Treaty 6 territory, homeland of the Métis, and we're so grateful for the original stewards of this beautiful land that we live on.
Over the course of the years, have you seen more engagement with Meewasin, and have you seen those kind of volunteering rates kind of continue to rise, or do you think there's still some kind of room for improvement in that sense of that area? When you first started studying biology, did you kind of foresee at that time, like 10 years from that moment, you would be doing what you are doing today?
Life brought me back here and ended up doing my internship here. And then, yeah, it was just that opportunity opens doors and maybe shifts your perspective of what you wanted to do. And
hey guys, welcome back to Empower Her. And today you have me, Karen. Empower Her is a podcast focusing on women empowerment, and we are inviting women across Saskatchewan, in Saskatoon as well, who are doing awesome things in their own fields, whether that be education, technology, medicine, or agriculture, and many more. Today we have yet another, and her name is Jamie, and she is a director of education at the Meewasin Valley Authority. And before I say anything else, I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, yes, I'm Jamie McMillan. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I have been working at Meewasin for over 20 years. I think I started in 1999, so a long time now, and I am currently in the role of Director of Education and loving it.
Awesome, I love that. Maybe for the audience, I know you've studied at the University of Saskatchewan for a little bit. What inspired you to start at the education kind of realm of the field that you're currently working in, and then slowly stepping into the leadership role that you're currently in?
Well, I love everything to do with nature. So that was my primary goal. And I knew I wanted to have a career doing something, working outdoors, studying some facet of the environment. And when I did my certificate in ecological education after my biology degree, there was an opportunity to do a work at Beaver Creek Conservation Area for this internship. And so I started there and just fell in love. It was just so magical to be out there sharing nature with children who are so excited to be there. So
yeah, that's awesome. I also feel like, usually when you're younger, you build a lot of the experiences that make you the person you want to become when you get older. As you were getting older, were you exposed to a lot of community-driven experiences, which is why then you decided to step into a role like this?
Yeah, I think for me, it was nature is such a good teacher. So anytime I was outside, whether that's hiking or just exploring, watching wildlife, photography, just anything outside, there was always something for me to learn. And that would expand out into who am I learning from nature primarily, but then it's also the people and the sense of place in whatever area I happen to be in. And so all of those just sort of fit together beautifully. Nature, community, and all those passions.
Maybe for the audience as well, if you were to kind of describe what is your day-to-day kind of role look like, and I know usually in a leadership role that can vary a lot from day to day, but maybe if you were just to give it in a more general terms, like a high-level overview of what does your responsibilities kind of look like, and how do you feel with that responsibilities on your shoulder?
Sure. So I'm loving being in the education department. We kind of have three pillars, so it's kind of easier to talk about what all that means. We do school programming. We also do tourism programs, and then we have a volunteer and community engagement kind of pillar as well. So that's a great team of educating the public in many different ways. One is curriculum focused. One is more kind of just getting out there and having a great time, and hopefully making those connections in nature and wanting to pursue more understanding about the environment. And then the other one's just getting hands-on and having that social connection with the community. So my job is to help create some of those programs as we are expanding, and then to help facilitate a lot of them. and hopefully encourage and inspire staff to love their jobs as much as I do, which
Yeah.
I think they all do.
Yeah. Talking about facilitating some of those things, have you ever come across like some kind of challenges in this role, or maybe just overall in the department that you're working in? And what are some of those challenges that you can observe? And do you think those challenges have been minimized over the years that you've been working in this role or in this kind of field?
I think one of the largest challenges that I've noticed from this longevity point of view of being working in this field since 1999 is the disconnect to nature in general. I think that a lot of folks are not spending as much time outside, maybe with the influence of social media, or maybe it's just living in an urban environment and not having those same opportunities to get out into nature. So I think that's been a real challenge, is trying to educate and lose some of that fear of nature. I always joke that my first job is just getting students comfortable in sitting down in nature, because I think a lot of people have just lost that sense of play and curiosity right off the get-go. So that would be one of the challenges that I've really noticed over the years.
Yeah. It's also interesting, right? Because maybe when we look at the olden days, maybe like 20 years ago or 30 years ago, it was very rare to see women leading in leadership roles. But seeing yourself now actually actively, being one of those role models, being in a leadership role, do you ever feel pressurized because of your gender? Has that ever kind of come about your way?
When I got hired into Meewasin, we had a female CEO. So
That's awesome.
I think that probably had an impact on me, that gender didn't play as much of a role. I felt empowered seeing women within leadership roles within the organization that I work in. But that's not to say there hasn't been challenges along the way being a woman. But yeah, I think that was helpful that we already were progressive and had that women in leadership already.
Maybe just looking at, the future generations, the future workforce, where do you see an opportunity for improvement, for kind of bringing in women together? Do you see some kind of gaps that are currently there in the field that you're working in, to support women? And if so, how do you think we can kind of fill those gaps? That might be a very heavy question.
I feel like in the environmental field, it aligns really well with some of maybe those typical feminine traits of the nurturing and the collaborative work, and some of those characteristics that we may associate with femininity, but that we do always have a lot of women who are interested. But I always feel like there's room to encourage that science aspect and to push for women to feel like they can definitely do anything and work in any field that they choose, for sure.
Yeah. And it's very interesting, right? Because me being as a woman myself, when I look at people like you in those leadership roles, I feel like it feels very empowering, very inspiring. And it's great to see women leading. I think, as you said, because you had a CEO in the company who's already a woman, that itself was already very empowering for you to kind of take up those kind of leadership roles within the company itself. Speaking of women, or not even women, just maybe like future workforce, what do you think are some of the important lifestyle habits and skills that are very important in order to have a more long-term career?
Lifestyle skills. Well, I think everything comes down to balance. If you think of my field, the environmental field, and that's something that Meewasin stands for, is just trying to balance that human use and conservation within an urban environment. And I think that same lifestyle skill kind of really fits in with humans of any gender, is just being able to balance all of the things that you want to be able to do in life. And whether that's your strong career and having children, or being able to have all of those aspects, just finding that balance of how to make it all work successfully for you.
And that's very fair, right? Because sometimes I feel like when we're kind of working in a job, like a corporate job or kind of like an 8 to 4 job, it becomes very difficult to find that balance, right? So is there something that you actively do to make sure that balance is involved in your life?
Yeah, I always joke and say I can't do everything all in one day, but I can do two things really good this day, and I'll do two different things really well the next day. So I think balance means something different to everyone. For myself, that's how I make it work. Sometimes I'm a really great athlete, I'll go for great runs, and the next day I'm going to focus all on work and just I'm going to work 12 hours that day. And so I think having that flexibility to let yourself not have to do it all at the same time, and allowing that is important for that opportunity of balance to be successful in many different areas.
Right. And when this role kind of first came to you of becoming a director of education, what made you say yes to this role, considering that it could be very big, it could be huge responsibility, and you've got to manage people, facilitate projects. What made you said yes to that?
I love facilitating opportunities for people to learn. And so at first that meant the actual guests of the program, whether it's students or a tourism activity or a volunteer program. But then as I evolved in my career, that also meant helping to facilitate opportunities for my peers, for my coworkers, and being able to provide empowerment that I felt that I received to others. And I guess I was being viewed as a leader just through experience of time of being there, and folks were learning off of me that I really wanted to step into that next level to help to grow the organization and to help make a stronger difference and maybe a stronger impact on some of the things that I wanted to achieve within the environment and in my career.
Yeah. Maybe looking at when you started working in this, not role, but in the company itself versus now, maybe like 15, 20 years later, what do you think are some of the massive changes that have been made for the community?
I think that Meewasin is so important for our community because our city is a beautiful city with that river protection, and that we're able to have that balance, as we were talking about earlier, of that sense of place and having nature right here, and being able to not only have that nature, which is so healthy for us, but also to have a lot of the community activities and volunteer and programs that connect in all of those aspects. So now we have this beautiful environment, wonderful city, and we can thrive with those things in place.
What are some of the exciting projects that the company is working on for the city or the province?
Yeah, it's an exciting time for sure. Meewasin is a great organization, and we really are working hard to continue with that balance within in the city, and to help make this place beautiful for everyone and have that sense of place. And I hope that we will be a national urban park, hopefully next time we chat, which will help us to grow and do even more greater things.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And apart from this, what else do you hope maybe for the next 10 or 15 years?
I think that having that real impact on the community is essential. Saskatoon is a wonderful place to live, and just continuing to have that grow and build is really important. And I think with a small staff of 30, if we're able to expand that a little bit and be able to get out and have a bigger reach and touch more people and help facilitate some of those connections, that would be amazing.
I agree. Yeah, very much so. I always ask this to all of my guests, and I'm curious to know what you think about this. When you started your career versus now, if you were to define empowerment at this stage of your career, what do you think, and how do you think you're going to define empowerment today versus maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago?
I think my first take, because I look at everything with an environmental lens, my first take is empowerment to connect and have that relationship with the environment. And then once you have that relationship, that's when you want to protect it and advocate for the environment. And then that just keeps growing into empowerment, that you can have the voice to help make the world a better place, as that filters into many other streams. It's just the environment is, of course, only one facet of all the things that we need to thrive on this planet.
It's very interesting you say that. Also, I feel like Indigenous programs, Indigenous storytelling, it plays a very big role in our province and the whole part of Canada, actually. So when you're actually facilitating these programs or designing these programs for individuals or communities, is there something that you actively consider in terms of Indigenous storytelling or Indigenous kind of heritage, or talking about some of their cultural elements? Is this something that Meewasin kind of takes into consideration when facilitating these programs?
Yeah, so Meewasin definitely recognizes Treaty 6 territory, homeland of the Métis, and we're so grateful for the original stewards of this beautiful land that we live on. The word Meewasin is actually a Cree word for "it is beautiful," and we are definitely on our journey with reconciliation and looking for the most appropriate ways of how to best incorporate that into a lot of our programming. We have just completed in the last couple of years a really beautiful signage with collaboration with many Indigenous partners out at the Northeast Swale. So just finding those opportunities to allow their voices to tell the stories that need to be told. So,
Right.
yeah.
And it's very interesting too, right? Also, we have a lot of younger generation that kind of watches our podcast. What do you think we as a younger generation could do, and if we can in our capacity, to support Meewasin a bit more? What can we do as individuals, or let's say institutions, or educational companies? Like, what do you think we could do further to support?
I think the best thing is just finding out all about Meewasin. I think it's one of those things. You see the signs on the trails, you see the benches, but like, what is Meewasin? What do you do? And it's a complicated organization. We do a lot of things, so it's hard to sum up into a sentence. So I think finding out what the organization is and how you can get involved, which is so great because Meewasin has many ways that you can get involved. We have lots of free programs just to get people out and about and to connect and see the sites and have these experiences in nature. And then also we have some ticketed prices that go back and help support the conservation efforts that Meewasin does. And some of those are, entry-level fees all the way to one of our fancier fine dining over the prairie sheep grazing dinner experience. So we have the whole spectrum of what you can get involved in. And then on the volunteer side and the community engagement, where we set up booths at lots of different community things around the city. We run volunteer events quite regularly, lots in the summer, whether it's removing invasive species or wrapping trees so that we can live with the beavers and still have trees and so that everyone's happy. We're always about that balance. There's lots of ways to get involved. So I would encourage, first that understanding and come out and help us out.
Over the course of the years, have you seen more engagement with Meewasin, and have you seen those kind of volunteering rates kind of continue to rise, or do you think there's still some kind of room for improvement in that sense of that area?
Well, we can always improve.
Yeah.
But I would say it is every year. It's been wonderful to see how many people do come out, and we have just a solid amount of volunteers that are on the list and always looking for things to do. So it's really quite encouraging. The community of Saskatoon has so many beautiful, beautiful people who are just looking for ways that they can contribute. But of course, we always want more. We can always do more. It's a big valley.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Being in a leadership role, do you have role models that you actively look up to? Because I'm sure when you're being a leader, you've got to manage a lot of group of people. Is there somebody that you really look up to actually aspire to be? Because I'm sure being in a leadership role, it can be very difficult, to sometimes navigate different personalities, different people, different projects. So how do you actively seek for feedback or actively look for role models?
I think we've all had role models in our life that, maybe you knew right away and just admired them and followed them for a while, or maybe they just sunk into you through like a teacher that just kind of got into your skin somehow. But I've had lots of wonderful, wonderful role models throughout my life that have guided me in what kind of a person I want to be, which I guess kind of led to some of those traits that ended up being what I would consider a good leader. So I always want to encourage staff to do their work and grow in the best way that they can. And that my team is amazing. So I really don't even feel like I have to lead because everyone is so fantastic that we support each other and they're all just roles to me. You just happen to be working on this today and I'm working on this to help orchestrate it. But every role is important and we're all building each other up. And I also feel like that is how Meewasin is built. So the leadership team at Meewasin is also just a beautiful role model to see how the other teams are working and use that as guidance and support as well. So pretty lucky.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the 3 important skills in order to be a very good leader, being a good active listener to people that work for you?
Well, I think you just said one of them. Being a great listener is very important. Just being able to hear what people are saying and be able to have that empathy towards that human and see them as people first, right? So you're always humans first, and then deal with all of those issues as human beings one to another. And then, of course, just being able to support each other just as you would in any kind of team opportunity. If opportunity for communication, keeping those lines open, that 360 feedback is so important, and just that willingness to understand one another and support one another is so important.
Yeah. And I know you also said you have summer students like working in the office right now. When you look at those summer students versus maybe when you look at yourself 10, 15 years ago, is there something that you've noticed that the future generation has that probably you didn't have at the time versus things that you had at the time but the future generation doesn't have?
Yeah, I guess this generation has so much information. So one of the things when I look for hiring staff is that everybody can learn the information about what you might be teaching, the students or the tourism programs. But it's just really having that connection and that passion to share the knowledge. So I think that information at the fingertips is amazing. It's really a really cool advantage. But yeah, I think the passion, I wouldn't say is something that I had that someone else doesn't have, but I definitely, that's a trait that I would look for similarities.
If you were to give career advice, what kind of career advice would you give?
For me, I think I would recommend following your passions. That's what I did, and it worked out for me. But I think that if you're doing something you love, it obviously is going to hold so much more meaning. And I have a hard time, and maybe that's not great to admit, but I have a hard time separating work from enjoyment. I love my
that's
job.
Me too.
I mean, I love my job so much that I often say it's blurred lines. Like, was I working just then? Was I just sharing some great knowledge with friends? It's just finding something that you really do love to do makes all the difference in the world.
When you first started studying biology, did you kind of foresee at that time, like 10 years from that moment, you would be doing what you are doing today?
No.
It's like completely different.
Yeah, very. When I started, I had, I just wanted to go on and study, be a biologist and study in the field and just work actively in the environment, maybe pick a particular, now I'm in love with birds. So I feel like that would have been a good path for me, but I don't know if that's what I would have chose when I was in university, but I wanted to go somewhere and just study and do more of the research side. And I had actually gone so far to move to Alberta and had settled over on that province. And then life brought me back here and ended up doing my internship here. And then, it was just that opportunity opens doors and maybe shifts your perspective of what you wanted to do and what you end up doing. And then again, it's that balance, because I did have kids right at the same time that I got hired full-time at Meewasin. So it was finding a career that also fit a family life in the way that I wanted as well. So
I'm also curious to ask, because you have kids and you're doing so well in your career, have you ever had a hard time, like, I'm sure there must have been phases in everyone's life where at some point, like you would find it hard to kind of spend time with your kids versus, go to work and like spend time with your family. In those moments, did you ever feel overwhelmed? And who do you think was that one person that maybe you want to thank that have really supported you throughout this journey of yours?
Well, that would be my parents. Super supportive. And my family in general. So trying to do it all is difficult. And I think that reminds me of an improvement that has happened with the organization over time, is that it is easier to have flexibility to work from home or disappear to go help out with the kid thing for an hour or two. When I worked back in the day, I was solidly out at Beaver Creek Conservation Area. So that was a little bit more difficult because you were gone for a big chunk of your day and didn't get to see your kids. So I think the improvements are being made to adjust the work career with lifestyle a little bit better these days.
Yeah. This might sound like a very random question, but it's something that I always ask people because I'm very curious and I'm an avid reader. I enjoy reading books. If you were to give a suggestion in terms of like a book recommendation, what would you suggest to somebody who is actively looking to maybe improve themselves, or kind of like those self-help books? I don't know if you read those quite often, but if you do, what do you think you would recommend?
That is the toughest question ever. I read books all the time and love books.
That's nice.
But I think it also depends on what phase of life that you are in and which book is going to impact you. And when you read it, I might read the same book that I read in my 20s and take something totally different from it.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends on what your journey is on. I love mixing them all up. So I definitely have read lots of different self-help books. But I also love reading all of the environmental ones. I love learning about, the planet, but also just disappearing into some other book of a story of a life.
Like, what do you think stayed the longest with you? Maybe I'll put it that way.
I was a big Jane Goodall fan, so I loved reading all of her books. So
I've heard of those.
Yeah. So when I was young, that made a huge impact on me. I wanted to be Jane Goodall or Diane Fossey and just live in the jungle and study wildlife. So that was definitely something that impacted my life. I don't know if that's a book series for everyone to read, but I really enjoyed it.
But this is from Westgate Books, Jamie. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so Westgate Books is on Louise Avenue, which is like on 8th Street, but like behind Save on Foods. They're an awesome place.
Of course, I've been there.
Oh, have you?
Oh, yeah.
They're awesome. They have a cute cat.
Yeah. Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, they're very cute, and they do a lot of secondhand books, but like there's like a lot of different genres. So there's like romance, there is thriller, there is self-help books, there's nonfiction. So there's a lot of different books you can get. They were there at the Spring Festival on Broadway. I don't know if you had a chance to go, but they had an awesome stall and they were awesome.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate that. This will come in handy for book club nights.
Yes, it was exciting. Awesome. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, to the audience, I'm just going to say, well, first of all, thank you for coming to the podcast. It means so, so much. And I feel like I've learned so much over the course of the past, minutes that last hour that I've kind of spent with you. And thank you so much for sharing so, so much about the organization and the work that you guys do. I'm sure the audience is going to learn so much more about the organization itself. To the audience, well, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, which hopefully you don't have any concerns, you can feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and Jamie and I will help to co-reply because we're awesome. And with that being said, Jamie, do you have any last words for the audience?
Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for having me as a guest on your podcast.
Yeah, awesome.
Amazing.
It was lovely to have you. And with that being said, we're just going to say bye.